little lanterns, and welcome back to Phantom FM. It's been a bit of a quieter gaming week for me around here, but I somehow still found plenty of ways to get myself in trouble. We've got another week in Azeroth, return to Palworld, and of course another trip into the dark with Phasmophobia. So get comfortable, grab your lanterns, and let's get into this week's of Phantom FM. My week in WoW. This was the final week of Turbulent Timeways, which means it was the final time to find out whether I was right. If you remember from last week, I was pretty convinced that you didn't actually need to redo the entire requirement every single week. I thought as long as you got the Turbulent Timeways buff the required number of times, it would account towards the achievement. Well, I got them out. So it worked. And I still think it's working as intended. Demonic disagrees with me on this one. His argument is basically that the system punishes people for actually playing their characters because if you've been actively playing that tune, eventually the buff is going to fall off. And meanwhile, if you get the buff and then stop playing that character, you're basically preserving it. And I understand the argument. I just think that's how Blizzard intended the achievement to work and that it's working as intended. Either way, the experiment's over. I got my mount and I'm happy. I also did some time walking with Bloodjared this week, and he managed to get my shaman all the way to level 90. Woo! What did I get? Reach level 90! Level 90! Which means I now have another problem. I can't decide what I want to heal on. I've been stuck between my priest and my shaman right now, and I'm leaning towards the priest, mostly because I've managed to get a little bit more gear on that character. And later in the week, I had some drinks and played well with Bloodjared and his lady and Demonic. I ended up doing some time walking on my druid as healer, and honestly, it felt really nice. Which doesn't exactly help with my decision between priest and shaman, because now I'm sitting here thinking about druid again too. At one point, the queues for tanks were pretty slow, so I decided to switch over and try tanking on the druid for a bit instead, and it was pretty easy. Druid has always been one of the easier tanks for me when I've dabbled in tanking, so that wasn't really a surprise. It was just nice to jump back into it and have it still feel pretty comfortable. I don't know if I'm suddenly going to become a tank main or anything, but it was fun switching things up. Moving into WoW news, we've got a few smaller things this week. Patch 12.1 has 2 new housing exteriors showing up on the PTR. We don't actually know what they are yet, but they appear to be entirely new exterior designs. And Blizzard has said that the new exteriors found on the PTR will be earnable in-game rather than coming from the shop. So obviously I'll be keeping an eye out for those. There's also a new social feature coming with 12.1 that I think is actually a really nice addition. Blizzard's adding the ability to connect your guild's Discord with your in-game guild chat. Basically, someone chatting through Discord will be able to communicate with people sitting in guild chat inside WoW. And I really like this. Discord's already where so many guilds communicate when they're outside a game, so being able to connect those conversations just makes sense. It should be especially nice for people who aren't logged in but still want to keep up with what's happening in their guild. And also a quick reminder, if you're watching this before Tuesday, make sure you've bought whatever Decor Duels rewards you want before it's gone. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to get enough for the mount myself, so I'm already hoping they bring that one back somehow, because apparently I'm just gonna have to live without it for now. Moving over to Palworld. We played some more Palworld on the laptops this week and decided to check out our old server. And we very quickly realized we had a lot done on the other server, way more than I remembered. So instead of continuing with the newer world, we decided to go back and start playing on the old one again. I also streamed some Palworld this week, although I wouldn't exactly say I accomplished anything groundbreaking. I spent most of the stream clearing out pieces of the map, going back to bosses I'd already defeated, but apparently not gotten the little check mark for, and honestly, I had a great time doing it. I think that's one of the reasons I really enjoy playing survival games solo. I like taking my time, I like exploring everything, and if there's a section of the map I haven't uncovered, I want to uncover it. If there's something off in the distance that looks interesting, I want to go see what it is. when I'm playing by myself, I don't have to worry about anyone waiting for me to hurry up, get to the next thing. I can just wander around and play however I want. And that means I can spend an entire stream checking out things on the map and be perfectly entertained. What I'm not particularly good at yet is remembering the controls. Because I keep accidentally throwing pal spheres, and I've wasted quite a few of them at this point. But this week I accidentally threw out a couple legendary spheres, and they're just gone. Fantastic. Um, didn't need that at all. Demonic also decided we should summon some raid bosses and kill them, and that was going pretty well until he summoned one that he didn't realize was level 80. We were not prepared for that level 81. We died. We'll come back to that one later though, and while I was wandering around, I also came across someone called the Pineapple on Pizza individual, who apparently is dangerous. It kind of made me laugh, and I think someone maybe who worked on Palworld might have some very strong opinions about pineapple on pizza. Just thought it was funny. Now it's time to turn the lights down and head on into this week's night shift. This week's Phasmophobia challenge is Frostbitten, and compared to some of the challenges we've had, this one is actually pretty normal when it comes to evidence. It's basically a professional investigation with all three pieces of evidence available. The catch? Both you and the ghost have reduced movement speed, although honestly, I barely noticed it. Going into the challenge, I expected the reduced speed to be way more noticeable than it actually was. Once I started playing, I pretty much forgot it was even there. What I noticed a lot more was the snow. Trying to spot ghost orbs when you've already got little white flakes flying across the screen isn't exactly ideal. There were definitely a few moments where I had to stop, figure out whether I was actually seeing an orb or just staring at the weather. The generator is also broken for this challenge, so the house stays cold. That can make using the thermometer a little less reliable when you're trying to narrow down the ghost room. Even with all of that, Frostbitten wasn't an overly difficult challenge. It actually felt close to a normal investigation once I got into it. What it did have was jump scares. A lot of scares. No, 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 no. Am I dead? Oh! I'm dead. So Frostbitten might not have the hardest challenge we've had, but it definitely managed to get me a few times. And since we spent this week's night shift freezing our asses off, I think it's only fitting that we stay in the cold for this week's Ghost Files. This week's Ghost File is a special one for me because we're talking about my favorite ghost in Phasmophobia, the Hantu. Hantu was added to Phasmophobia alongside the yokai in May of 2021, and it was actually one of the first new ghosts added to the game after its original roster. Its evidence is ultraviolet, ghost orbs, and freezing temps. And as you can probably guess from the last one, that ghost really likes the cold. The Hantu is one of the few ghosts in Phasmophobia whose speed isn't based on whether it can see you. Instead, its speed changes depending on the temperature of the room it's moving through. The colder it is, the faster the Hantu gets, and in warmer areas, it slows down. It also has another really cool identifying feature. If the breaker is off during a hunt, you can actually see the Hantu's freezing breath as it moves around. And that's a big part of why Hantu became my favorite ghost. When I first started playing Phasmophobia, it was one of the ghosts that felt the most unique to me. I figured out pretty early that you could see its breath when the power was off, and I thought that was so cool. And at the time, I was still learning all the different ghosts and what they could do, so having one that I could actually see this unique tell during a hunt really made it stand out to me. And even now, after learning all the different ghost abilities and tells, Haunted just kind of held on to that number one spot in my heart for me. So if you're trying to identify one without evidence, listen to its speed and as it moves between warmer and colder rooms. And if the breaker's off, watch for that freezing breath during a hunt. Just maybe don't get distracted by looking at that and forget that it's trying to kill you. And that's it for this week's Ghost Files. And that's gonna do it for this week's Phantom FM. and it might have been a quieter gaming week, but that doesn't stop me from finding ways to waste valuable items, get myself killed, and make choosing a WoW character significantly more complicated than it needs to be. Let me know what you think I should heal on going forward. Priest, shaman, maybe even druid now. Um, and I want to know your favorite Phasmophobia ghost too. Is there one that stood out to you when you first started playing and just never lost that spot? Until next time, little lanterns, keep the lanterns lit.